It's just me this time, I swear. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, it's JPR, and welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while since we last did this face cam thing, but honestly, I just really couldn't think of a way to integrate it into all the collab videos, so there. I just explained myself. But anyhow, today we're going over the biggest move changes in Pokemon history. Some buffed, some nerfed, and, well, usually I feel like this is the part where I'd say there's some sort of other criteria in place, but, no. I actually think that's just it. But I could tell you about the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. It doesn't matter where you're accessing the internet from, be it on public Wi-Fi or from your own home, safety should always come first. And if you aren't using a VPN, it just got that much easier for hackers to steal your information. Which is why NordVPN is here to help you out with the fastest VPN servers in the world, making sure that your internet connection is not only safe, but is also still just as fast. Not to mention they even have built-in threat protection to keep you clean from suspicious files. And for us nerds, NordVPN will even allow you to change your location to access region-locked movies, games, and TV shows. That also means that you can watch your favorite JPR videos from almost anywhere. There are 5,500 servers located in 59 different countries to choose from, so the world is literally your oyster. Plus, you can hook it up to 6 different devices, your desktop, your phone, even your TV. So if you want to hook yourself up with a 2-year plan and 4 extra months for free, then be sure to check out my link in the description down below, nordvpn.com/JPR. Thank you NordVPN for sponsoring, let's get back to the video. So where do we start? With a buff or a nerf? Why not both? Explosion and Self-Destruct were both significantly buffed between Gens 1 and 2. They actually only had 170 and 130 base power respectively in the first gen, before being raised to the 250 and 200 we know them by today. But as we briefly mentioned in the power creep video a couple weeks ago, Explosion and Self-Destruct also used to have an added effect. That being that they would cut the defending Pokemon's defense stat in half, basically making them 500 and 400 base power moves respectively. If you've never heard of this, it's because none of the games actually tell you about it except for Stadium 2. Outside of that game, it's a completely hidden bonus effect, because I guess they just assumed that when you get hit by Explosion, you're probably dying regardless. That is until Gen 5 when this bonus effect was removed, so the base power really is 250 instead of 500. So it's pretty funny to think that despite Explosion still being the highest powered move in all of Pokemon, it's also by far the most heavily nerfed move. The reason for this was likely because VGC started in Gen 4 and exploding Pokemon like Metagross and Snorlax could completely obliterate both Pokemon on the opponent's side. And that's even considering that Explosion, like all multi-target attacks, already has its power cut in half in doubles. The next moves that receive significant buffs are ones that you probably didn't expect: Roar and Whirlwind. Back in Gen 1, these moves could only be used against wild Pokemon, and if that wasn't bad enough, there's also a chance it can fail against higher leveled Pokemon, which is very puzzling because why else would you even use Roar or Whirlwind other than to escape from a tough battle? Otherwise, you have a built-in Whirlwind to use, it's called the run button! So yeah, in Gen 1 trainer battles, these moves are the equivalent to Splash. Actually, even Splash has 15 more PP, so you could realistically say that Splash wasn't the worst move in Gen 1. Starting in Gen 2, these attacks' mechanics were vastly overhauled, and most importantly, they could now be used in trainer battles. So now Roar, Whirlwind, and newly introduced moves like Dragon Tail and Circle Throw actually have some usage in competitive play. While still niche moves, they can be very important when it comes to stopping a Pokemon from setting up and sweeping. These moves have gotten better over time too, since entry hazards are much more plentiful now than they were back in the day, allowing you to get more chip damage in for every switch you force on your opponent. In the transition from Gen 4 to Gen 5, the HP draining moves got a big upgrade, most notably Giga Drain and Drain Punch. Prior to Gen 5, these were both 60 power moves with only 5 PP each, meaning they were hardly worth using both in competitive and the main story. But since Gen 5, they're now 75 base power moves with 10 PP, which may not sound like much of an upgrade, but it's actually made a world of difference. Especially with Drain Punch, which can be boosted by Iron Fist, making it an awesome recovery option for slower Pokemon like Conkeldurr and Golurk. But that's far from the most buffed draining move, because Gen 7 gave one of the most monumental buffs of all time to Leech Life, jumping from a pitiful base 20 all the way to base 80. That's 60 times more power than the average verified Twitter user has. It's literally just X-Scissor with a draining effect added onto it. The number of Pokemon that can learn this move has been vastly expanded since Gen 7, so this is an actual meta-changing move after spending 20 years as a mediocre attack for early game Zubats. What's funnier is that this move became so powerful that a lot of early game Pokemon lost Leech Life from their movesets, having it replaced by Absorb. Now, this next change is pretty big, but just know that this move still sucks. Razor Wind. It's a 2-turn normal type attack with 80 base power. From that information alone, you should be deleting it off of any Pokemon in your box right now. But what's even worse is that in Gens 1 and 2, it only had 75% accuracy. Imagine charging up your mediocre move for an entire turn just to have that big of a chance for it to miss entirely. Sure, it has 100% accuracy and an increased critical hit ratio now, but like I said, it still sucks. Don't use it. I would personally be okay with the Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee approach where charge moves like Solar Beam just have a monumental 200 base power, but realistically that was probably only done because power herbs didn't exist in that game. Side note, can you believe that Rock Throw only had 65% accuracy in Gen 1? Its base power was still 50, by the way. That never changed. Why did this move have lower accuracy than Focus Blast with less than half the power? Did one of the coders see this base 50 power move and say, uh-oh, this attack will be broken if it lands? Must have been looking out for Charizard fans, go figure. But a much more influential buff came to another rock move in Gen 2, as Rock Slide obtained its infamous 30% flinch chance after having no secondary effects in Gen 1. Of course, Rock Slide later became a multi-target move in Gen 3, and this would go on to become one of VGC's most important attacks, as it's one of the few moves with the ability to make both opponents flinch. Speaking of accuracy changes, we already talked about this one in the Ice-type video, but it's so important that I think it bears repeating. Blizzard used to have 90 accuracy in Gen 1, and in the Japanese versions it had a whopping 30% chance to freeze the opponent, which the international versions thankfully lowered to 10%. Because good lord, could you imagine? I think we can safely say that Japanese Gen 1 Blizzard may have been the most broken move in existence. It's probably a good thing we didn't experience it, although just having 90% accuracy alone on such a powerful move was still pretty wild. But hey, speaking of stupid Gen 1 moves, Wing Attack used to only have 35 base power before being buffed to 60 in Gen 2, which essentially meant that it used to be identical to Peck. The only difference was that some flying types learned Peck, and some learned Wing Attack. Well, at least there wasn't any overlap between them in Gen 1, because having a Pokemon that could learn the same move twice would just be dumb. Next, let's talk about one of Pokemon's most common status moves, Toxic. It used to have 85% accuracy, which was buffed to 90% in Gen 5, but that's not the buff we're talking about. Because starting in Gen 6, Toxic will bypass the accuracy checks whenever used by a poison type, meaning that it will always hit even when it's not really supposed to, such as when the opponent uses Fly or Dive. This was known as the Toxic Short Hit glitch, which started in X and Y, and wasn't patched out until the Crown Tundra came out in Pokemon Sword and Shield, 7 years later. But yeah, poison types still get the benefit of never missing the move, but at least in the proper situations now. Which is a pretty important buff for a type that's almost always been in Pokemon's bottom 3. As for other status moves, Will-O-Wisp got an important buff in Gen 6, going from 75% accuracy to 85%, while in Gen 7, Thunder Wave would be dropped from 100% accuracy to 90%, effectively switching places with Glare, which was buffed to 100% in Gen 6 from 90%. And before this, in Gen 4, Glare only had 75% accuracy, so through 2 separate buffs, that's a pretty big 25% jump in accuracy. This makes Glare a really valuable move now, which is nice since far fewer Pokemon learn it compared to Thunder Wave, and most of them are, well, pretty bad, so they kinda need it. That's not the biggest jump in accuracy, though. That actually goes to you hitting the subscribe button because only 20% of people watching right now are subscribed. Okay, but kidding aside, that honor belongs to Disable, which through 2 separate buffs went from 55% accuracy to 100% by Gen 5. The single biggest nerf in accuracy, though, belongs to Dark Void, which went tumbling from 80% to 50% in Gen 7. As we discussed in a previous video about Pokemon moves, though, this had almost nothing to do with Darkrai, rather just Smeargle hijacking it and abusing it in competitive play. Okay, so we talked about how broken Gen 1 Blizzard was earlier, but Gen 1 Hyper Beam has to be up there. Simply because if you knocked out a Pokemon using Hyper Beam in Gen 1, you wouldn't have to recharge in the next turn. And duh, it's a 150 base power move in a gen where steel types don't exist and Pokemon were generally way less bulky then than they are now. You're probably KOing them without much trouble. This made fast normal types in Gen 1 incredibly powerful, particularly Tauros, but other Pokemon like Dodrio, Persian, and even Raticate could get a lot out of just this one move. It's a big reason why Normal was ironically one of the best types in Gen 1. But simply changing it to where hitting this move always makes you recharge single-handedly made this move drop off faster than Facebook's stock price. From one normal type move that was extremely nerfed to one that was extremely buffed, we have Fake Out. Prior to Gen 5, Fake Out used to only have +1 priority, meaning that faster Pokemon could still act before it if they had a priority move of their own like Quick Attack or Sucker Punch. But now it sits at +3 priority, making it outspeed any other damaging moves in the game. Again, like Rock Slide, this had bigger ramifications for the VGC scene than anything else, as Fake Out is now one of the most commonly carried moves. But sometimes, high priority isn't the best thing. What if you want the lowest possible priority? Well, that's where Teleport comes in. Like Roar and Whirlwind, it used to have no function in trainer battles. But as of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Teleport now switches you out of battle with the lowest priority in the game at -6. This is important because it basically lets sturdier walls pivot into an offensive Pokemon with no risk of being hit, unlike a normal switch-in which always has the highest priority. Pokemon that are exceptionally good at using this move in the singles meta are Clefable, Slowbro, Blissey, and Magnezone. Alright, it feels like we're getting a little too deep into the competitive inner workings of Pokemon, so let's go over some more straightforward move changes. High Jump Kick has certainly had one of the most interesting histories out there. It's always had 90% accuracy, but it used to have a measly 85 base power in the first 3 gens. In Gen 1, missing this move only dealt 1 HP of recoil, which just makes me question what the point even was. In Gen 2, the crash damage was increased to 1/8 of the user's HP, and in Gen 3, it became half the damage you would have dealt to the opponent if you had hit. The base power was buffed to 100 in Gen 4, and now you'd take damage equal to half of your opponent's HP if you missed. Finally, in Gen 5, High Jump Kick was again buffed to 130 base power, but the punishment for missing was now half of your own HP. Which is just the most straightforward way to calculate it. I don't know why it took so long to get to this point. But yeah, after getting workshopped for 5 straight generations, High Jump Kick finally became the fun, high-risk versus high-reward move we have today. And probably Gen 8's biggest buffed move was Rapid Spin, going from 20 base power to 50, but more importantly raising the user's speed. Previously, this attack was only really used to remove entry hazards, and, well, to be honest, that's still this attack's main function. But some Pokemon do get a real benefit from the speed boost, like Hitmonlee, Excadrill, and Morpeko. Though, truthfully, using Rapid Spin on a faster Pokemon is still pretty niche, and didn't really have the gargantuan impact on the meta that some people thought it was going to have. But hey, Regieleki can use it just in case he's having trouble with Choice Scarfed Garchomps, maybe outspeeding him. I mean, hey, you never know. And there you have it, those are Pokemon's most extreme move changes. Although with Gen 9 only about a week away, who knows, there could be a lot of other moves getting added to this list. But hey, we'll be talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet as soon as we can, so make absolutely sure that you are subscribed and leave a like in this video because it really helps me out. And as always, channel members, yes, I did not forget about you. Thank you guys so very much for your constant support, and I'll see you guys next time.